And welcome back to the Sporting News Studios, talking a little NFL with NFL editor Scott Rich. I'm Tom Vandervoort. That's Stephen Levine. Let's talk a little Jacksonville Jaguars, because they released old David Garrard pretty late in the game, didn't they, Scott?
I'm fascinated by this move. On the surface, it looks like veteran aging quarterback who's had modest success but not great success, cut to make way for a new younger quarterback on the way up. But this one's going to have ramifications, I believe, beyond just Jacksonville, and it will touch some other teams down the road. For one thing, when they cut him right before the season, 5 days before opening kickoff, to save essentially $9 million on their roster, look, this is not going to play well with fellow players around the league who look at it as a cold, hard business decision for a guy who was a pretty good player for him and who was highly regarded in the community. I think this one's going to have some clubhouse issues that they're going to have to deal with.
Now, they've said that it was a terrible practice.
3 interceptions on Monday's practice.
The final straw. But come on, you know what you're getting with David Garrard.
Exactly. The body of work is not a mystery to anybody. He's played enough games in the regular season, and he's had, like I said, a fair amount of success. He hasn't really, they've struggled in December for sure, and he has as well. So you can't argue too much with the decision on the guy, but why do it now right before the season?
Well, I read one report, a rather cynical report, that said, well, they didn't want to give Tennessee that much time to game plan for a new quarterback.
That's just silly.
It seems silly. I think it's the real question is...
I mean, they gave him plenty of playing time in the preseason, too.
The real
so
question,
if you were going to cut him, you're taking minutes away from those other guys.
Why would Del Rio potentially alienate his clubhouse with a move like this? You wonder what's beyond it. If it's a cost-cutting move, might Wayne Weaver have eyes toward another market with his team? So we know Jacksonville's been a team that's been talked about for moving out to the West Coast in Los Angeles, which I think will happen in the next few years.
You're thinking Jacksonville will move there, or a team will move there?
I think Jacksonville is probably the most likely team right now, just given the market in Jacksonville and the potential in Los Angeles.
I mean, it's amazing there's still not a team in L.A.
So you wonder, why would they make this move? There are a lot of questions that you have to ask around the timing of this.
And what does it say about Jack Del Rio? After all, we know Wayne Weaver was talking to Jim Harbaugh this offseason.
Coming into the season, everybody knew he was on the hot seat. A move like this feels desperate. Now he goes into the season with Luke McCown and Blaine Gabbert, who will become the quarterback of the future for that team. And I think you're going to see Gabbert rushed into the starting lineup in the next couple of weeks. You have to do it if you're the Jaguars to see what you've got. But for Del Rio, look, it's he didn't get exactly a ringing endorsement in the offseason with the discussions around Harbaugh. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first coach fired this year.
Now, a lot of the people will tell you, well, hey, this is just a business. The NFL is a business, and this is a business decision. So how does that cut with other guys, maybe on the flip side, a guy like Deshaun Jackson, who is underpaid?
Right. There are a number of players coming into this season that have contract issues. Deshaun Jackson is one of them. He's only get paid $600,000 in Philadelphia. Now, last year, he was the guy on the receiving end of that Dunta Robinson hit. And he came back almost immediately from that and had a hugely successful season. You can't question his toughness.
No.
So when Terrell Owens yesterday says to Deshaun Jackson, don't suit up, players around the league are going to wonder if this is a cold, hard business decision, and down the road, Deshaun Jackson may not look favorably upon the Eagles if they don't reward him soon with a contract that's more in line with his production.
Right. If they're going to cut me because I'm not an $8 million player, I got to hold the line when I'm getting paid $600,000 and I'm a $2, $3, $4 million player.
Exactly. The Philadelphia Eagles shouldn't count on a hometown discount from Deshaun Jackson anytime soon. They can always franchise him, and that's something that they'll have to deal with down the road. But I think you're going to see some players take notice of this Garrard cut and play hardball with their owners. Matt Forte's unhappy with his contract. Troy Polamalu is going into the season at least working on a new deal. Now, nobody's suggesting they're going to walk out of camp. That won't happen at this stage. But I think down the road, each NFL owner is going to have to deal with something off of this Garrard move that the Jaguars just did.
And last question, where does David Garrard end up? Any obvious destinations? Miami Dolphins, something like that?
I would look at teams that have very stable quarterbacks like New Orleans, and you can look at the Colts situation, what's behind them. Behind Drew Brees is not a lot. They may want to bring in a veteran guy like Garrard right now to get him used to the system in case, because I think you're seeing that the Colts, who brought in Kerry Collins at a very late day, we'll see how he does this week, but nobody expects big things from Indianapolis.
Well, Scott, what about the flip side of that? I mean, we heard that Pete Carroll had expressed a little bit of interest, but that didn't go anywhere. What about bringing him in to help coach a young quarterback like a Jackson in Seattle, while the learning curve is still in process?
Well, you wonder why Del Rio didn't want that situation in Jacksonville. It makes sense.
And Garrard seems like a pretty stand-up guy.
Exactly. A community guy.
He said, I have nowhere to look but myself. I mean, he didn't blame anyone else.
He took the high road out of town.
And he didn't have to.
Right.
No, I don't think he did either.
And look, he did win a few football games for Jacksonville.
Not in December, unfortunately.
Not in December, unfortunately. A very curious move by the Jaguars at this point.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens to David Garrard and Jacksonville and Jack Del Rio. NFL season just getting started. We'll be back to talk about it some more. For Scott Ridge and Stephen Levine, I'm Tom Vandervoort. We'll see you next time.